Brought to you by Penguin.
Studying Wuthering Heights, the complete text and revision guide by Emily Brontë, with revision material by Fleur Frederick. Read by Kristin Atherton and Roy Mcmillan. Welcome to Studying Wuthering Heights, the complete text and revision guide. We begin this audiobook with a detailed analysis of the novel, covering an introduction and genre, summary, context, characters, major themes, structure and form, and some key quotations. We then move on to the full unabridged narration of the novel itself, with chapter summaries throughout. Introduction and genre. Wuthering Heights is the only novel written by Emily Brontë. It was published in 1847, the year before her death from tuberculosis, under the pseudonym of Ellis Bell. Brontë wrote it while she was living in Yorkshire with her sisters, Anne and Charlotte, and her brother, Branwell. She and Charlotte had returned home in 1842, following the death of their aunt, who had brought them up after their mother died in 1821. While the siblings were living together in the 1840s, they encouraged one another in their literary endeavours and produced some of the most famous novels of the Victorian period. Charlotte described Emily as an original mind, and Wuthering Heights was certainly received as an original work of literature. Many contemporary critics were shocked and unimpressed by its unconventionality and rawness. Even those who recognized its strengths were confused by its plot, which lacks the heavy-handed moral judgments of other Victorian novels, and by its flawed and often unlikable characters. Wuthering Heights is widely considered to be a Gothic novel, punctuated by apparently supernatural phenomena. The Brontës are known to have read Blackwood's magazine, the conservative periodical that included short stories, many of which were Gothic in nature and focused on the psychology of the Gothic, so it is not impossible that Emily was inspired by this reading material. The Gothic genre changed during the early part of the 19th century. 18th century Gothic tended to tell stories set in the past and in foreign countries. However, 19th century Gothic used Gothic devices within otherwise realistic stories set in Britain and Ireland in order to examine contemporary Victorian life. The critic Susan Chaplin notes that Gothic devices deployed in these Victorian novels include doubling, haunting, and psychological persecution, all of which occur in Wuthering Heights. Like many critics, Chaplin suggests that female authors use the Gothic as a medium in which to interrogate injustices against women. For example, the plots of Anne Radcliffe's Gothic novels typically focus on women's property rights and the heroine's struggle to get her inheritance from the man or men who have dispossessed her. This is obviously the case in Wuthering Heights, in which Heathcliff takes Cathy's inheritance from her by marrying her to his son. However, this straightforward Gothic trope is complicated by the fact that it is not the novel's sole focus, with the apparent villain, Heathcliff, having been as oppressed and dispossessed as Cathy is, unlike Radcliffe's villains. In some ways, Heathcliff appears to be some kind of Gothic monster. Late in the novel, Nellie asks herself, is he a ghoul or a vampire, reflecting that she has read about such things, presumably in Gothic fiction. Even though she dismisses this as superstition, the question lingers in the reader's mind. Heathcliff's ascendancy comes as Hindley and Edgar decline and die, just as Heathcliff's decline and death accompanies the rise of Cathy and Hareton, and this suggests that the success of any character in the novel comes at the expense of another, just as a vampire thrives while their victim weakens. Indeed, the critic James Twitchell considers the main theme of Wuthering Heights to be one of parasite and host, oppressor and victim, vampire and vampirized. Many interpretations of the novel focus on Bronte's depiction of the relationship between classes, especially the cruelty of the powerful and the exploitation of the powerless, which ties in with Twitchell's observations about vampirism. However, if Heathcliff is a monster, the novel suggests that he has been made this way by the cruelties of Hindley and Edgar. The critic Geoffrey Jerome Cohen observes that Gothic monsters are typically disturbing hybrids, and this is true of Heathcliff, who is depicted as something that is both animal and human, a wolfish man.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?